All right, so it's time now for us to put together the create account. So let's go to get started because we can't go and do login before we have an account. That makes no sense, right? So naturally, create account is the first thing we're going to do. For us to be able to create an account, we're going to use Firebase authentication. Now, what's going on here? Because when we started, I said we're using Firestore, and now I'm talking about Firebase. And previously, when we were adding all the dependencies, we added storage and many other things. So, well, everything comes under Firebase. So Firestore is under Firebase. Firestore is a subset, like I said before, of Firebase with all of these different advantages that we talked about earlier. But for us to be able to authenticate users, to create users, that is a different subsection of this entire thing called Firebase real-time database. Okay? The beauty here is for us to be able to authenticate or create users, we don't have to do a lot of work, because all of the work has been done for us. All we have to do is use the API, Firebase API authentication and so forth, for us to be able to log users in and create account. If we go back to our assistant here, click there, you should have that open. It should open the last thing that we had open. Okay, so let's go back. We have at the top here, analytics, we added that. And most importantly, we want to be able to sign users in. So we have this email and password authentication. If you click here, notice we should have this all green. Okay. And the cool thing is at the bottom here, it gives us the code that we should use when we want to authenticate our user. Right. And also gives us how to sign up new users, how to create an account. Now, there's different ways to create account for our users. The way that we're going to use is the method called create user with email and password method. As you can see here, it's a little bit small. Okay, as you can see here, it's very simple. We instantiate our authorization, Firebase authorization, and we invoke the create user with email and password. And guess what? We pass email and password. And of course, there are all of these callbacks that we need to implement, all these interfaces, and we're able then to create a user and get the user name and everything. Very simple. Very, very good. Very good. So first things first, I'm going to close this down a little bit here. What I need to do at the top here, of course, as our instance variables, I'm going to create a few items. First one is going to be a Firebase auth. Now make sure you get the Firebase namespace there, the Firebase package. Okay. And I'm going to call this Firebase auth. I'm going to create another one. This one is going to be Firebase auth, but I'm going to get the auth listener because we need to be able to listen to all of the events that Firebase is firing. So we will need an authorization state listener. Okay, so I'm going to say auth state listener. And because we're going to need this, I'm going to also invoke the Firebase user class, call this current user, because we want to be able to fetch the current user who is logged in, who has been logged in or created account and logged in and everything, so that we can do things later. You will see that. Now here, this is where we're going to create our Firestore connection, right? So all of this is Firebase. Now we're going to talk about Firestore. Again, Firestore is just a subsection of Firebase. Private, I'm going to say Firebase Firestore, and something's not happening here. Notice that we're not recognizing the class Firebase Firestore. What's really happening? Well, if you remember correctly, we actually have to install or add into our dependencies our Firestore. Let's go to our build module grader here. Remember where we have, it says here Firebase core 16.8. We're going to have the same thing, but now we're going to just append the Firestore. So I'm going to copy this as such and paste it all in. Instead of Firebase core, right, I'm going to change this to Firestore as that. And it looks like we need to change or add or change to 18. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and say sync. We'll take a few seconds and build. Everything is good. Okay, very good. So now we're good to go. In fact, we come down here. Notice now we're able to import it. Just like that, you can see that we now have Firebase Firestore. As you see, small things, nonetheless, very important. So that is an important thing to always remember. We'll always have to go back to our app Gradle here, module app, and just copy the Firebase we have, core, and just change, instead of Firebase core, just change to Firebase Firestore like that. And then it will prompt you, should prompt you, depending on when you're watching this video. If it prompts you to change or to upgrade, just go ahead and upgrade and don't forget to sync so things actually work. All right, very good. So now we have that. What I'm going to do, so our Firestore here, we are going to go and call this DB because that's going to be our database, right? Where we can put collections and documents and so forth. So I'm going to invoke the Firebase store and get instance as such. Of course, we're going to be doing a lot of work with our Firestore, but at this point here, we want to make sure that we actually create a user's account. So as we always do, let's go ahead and get all of our widgets. Say private, edit text, email, edit text, like that, private, password, edit text. And while we're here, let's get our progress. Let's say progress bar, call progress bar as such. I'm going to say private button, create account button. And I'm going to say private, another edit text here. This is going to be our user name, edit text as such. Very good. Let's go ahead and get all of those situated. I think we already have, right, I already have create account, so I don't need that. Do I already have everything? Right, I just realized that all of these should actually be somewhere else. This should be inside of our create account. My bad. Okay, that's no problem. We're just going to go ahead and copy all of it and take it over right here. That's what we need to do. I was just in the wrong place. No problem. Login, create account. Let's see. So everything should go. Let's see. So that is all that needs to be in our login. Very good. So I'm going to get rid of it for now, so that way we can focus only on create account, so we don't get confused, just like I did. Very good. So here we go. Inside of our main here, I'm going to go ahead and use the create account. Say find by r.id.create account button. Again, let's make sure this is exactly from where I want it to be. Very good. It's from our create account. That's good. And I'm going to say progress and find by ID, r.id, that progress, create account progress. Very good. So nothing new here. I'm just going to get our email account. Let's get our password. Password account. Notice I appended account so that I know this actually belongs to our account activity. That's a clever move. Username, find by r.id, username account. Very good. Very good. So now we have all of our items, all of our widgets. What we need to do next is actually set up our authentication. If we go back to our assist here, we'll notice to authenticate, we have to create our Firebase auth, which we created. I call this Firebase auth there. Notice it's always important to remember that when it comes to Firebase Firestore, we need to know exactly at what stage of our life cycle, the activity life cycle, should we initialize our auths, initialize our authentication listeners, and so forth. Okay, they give us an example here that says to check if the user exists, we check always on start. So that's before the onCreate is actually invoked. Okay, so that's to keep in mind. So inside of our main here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say Firebase, the auth Firebase that we created at the top. I'm going to say Firebase auth.get instance, because this Firebase auth also needs an instance so that we can use it. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go outside of our onCreate. I'm going to say on start like this. So what are we going to be doing on start? Well, on start, just like they tell us here to do, we are going to be doing things a little bit backward. This is actually where we get the current user, because on start, we want to make sure that before anything is put on screen, before onCreate is called, we want to make sure that all of the Firebase stuff is all done. So at this point here, I'm going to say current user. Notice the current user is a Firebase type. This is very handy. I'm just going to be saying is equal to Firebase auth.getCurrentUser. Okay, and then I'm going to say Firebase auth. I'm going to add a state listener. Now this state listener we haven't created yet. I'm going to pass here our auth listener as such. We're going to create our state listener auth in the next video.